This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Welcome. You've heard and read the spin the media and the politicians have put on the issues of the day. To get the correct spin on what's going on in North Carolina, let's introduce you to our panel of experts. They include former House Speaker Joe Mavretic, Chris Fitzsimon from NC Policy Watch, Syndicated columnist and author John Hood, and former state senator, former chairman of the Board of Education, Howard Lee. Well, just in time for the new July 1 budget year, the legislature has agreed to a $22.3 billion budget. Legislative leaders were almost giddy in a joint news conference announcing the resolution of the budget. We want our panel to assess how well lawmakers did and talk specifics about what was passed. So I want to ask each of you, give a letter grade to this budget passed by the legislature, with A being the best, F being the worst. Senator Lee, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm giving the budget a B-. I certainly think that there are some good parts in the budget, especially when it comes to recognizing teachers and trying to make an effort to give them an increase. There are some areas left out of the budget that I would like to have seen there, having to do with professional development. But overall, I think the educational budget certainly is an average budget.
All right, John, your grade.
I'll give the budget an A. I don't think I've ever given a state budget an A.
No, you haven't.
But I'm a pretty tough grader on that subject, but I think this one deserves it. It's not that I agree with everything, all the decisions that were made that were in the budget, but in general, I think it made the right decisions, set the right priorities, saved $500 million for a rainy day, which is critical, and extended tax relief.
B- and an A to you, Chris Fitzsimon.
I'm probably going to change the average now. I'll give it a D for doomed from the beginning. When they made a decision that they were going to only abide by an arbitrary spending formula, and when they made a decision that they were going to cut taxes again, which a lot of people, even a lot of conservatives last year said we probably weren't going to do, then they were going to have to make choices like Senator Lee said. I do think that teacher raise, I'm not sure it was enough, but it was a good step in the right direction. But by doing that, they used up a lot of the availability. State employees, I think, were shortchanged, and we're going to talk about some more specifics. I think they left a lot of things undone because they tied themselves in when they decided to cut taxes and only spend a tiny amount of money.
Joe, are you going to raise or lower this average here?
I'm absolutely flummoxed here. I thought I was going to hear an A and an F and probably a C or so from Howard. I would give them a C, maybe a C+. I think it's a pretty average budget that clearly signals to the state the priorities of the majority party. I think they have done that extremely well. You don't have to be a budget expert. You don't really have to be somebody who follows politics closely to understand exactly where the Republicans want the ship of state headed.
All right. Howard, you talked about teachers. Let's get into that a little bit. They got a 4.7% average increase. Teacher pay is going to increase to $50,000 in the current year, $54,000 over the next 3 years. What's the reaction from teachers?
I think they will receive that quite well. Certainly, it's not where people would like to see it go. It's certainly not where I'd like to see it go, but it's a good start. And I'm hopeful that this is a signal that down the road, the legislature is committed to doing more. But more importantly than money, I think there are several areas that have not been addressed as they need to be. One is professional development. I don't think they did what they should have done there. I don't think they did enough to try and give some release to the teachers in the classroom, such as they made an effort to put teacher assistants back in, but they didn't go quite as far.
Well,
and then one final point that I'd make is that I think academic materials has been shortchanged again.
Joe, talking about this development and rewarding teachers, one of the interesting clauses was that they're giving bonuses of up to $6,500 for a third grade teacher whose students excel on the state standard reading test, state mandated reading test. Do you have any confidence this can be done accurately and implemented well?
No, and my quarrel with all of this, Howard, is that what we do when we address salaries, we address micro issues. That's not the issue with which the General Assembly ought to be concerned. The problem in North Carolina is not going to be solved with increased teacher salaries until we get around to understanding that the bottom line for the state as a whole is how much are our people earning based upon what they have learned in schools. And until we make that macro connection, increasing in salaries will not increase student performance.
All right, moving along. State employees got a 1.5% pay raise. They got a bonus of 1%. And then 1% of all salaries was put into a merit pay fund in which supervisors could be doling out merit pay increases. I want to know what you think about the basic plan, but is there any evidence at all that government can work with and implement merit pay increases?
Well, I'm not sure how this plan is going to work. I mean, I think the legislators think that the supervisors are going to be able to figure that out. I'm not sure they can without a plan in place to do that. But I think this is an example of state employees have been shortchanged for years, and it's not a bad thing necessarily to target some hard to recruit state employees who have tough jobs. The governor's wanted to do that, but if all we can do across the board is give a 1.5% raise, the bonus, remember, it doesn't go toward retirement. It goes away next year. Their pay goes down. For state employees who I think have been shortchanged for a long time, I think they needed a much higher raise to keep attracting the kind of people we want to work in state government.
John, another area in which there was a lot of discussion was as far as retirees. And instead of giving the retirees a fixed cost of living increase, they gave them a one-time 1.6%. Explain, what was the logic there?
Their thinking was that the pension fund, and in particular the state employee health plan, including retirees, is so significantly in trouble in the long run that they didn't want to increase the liabilities further by having a permanent increase in the COLA. Now, I think I would have addressed the problem differently, the long-term fiscal sustainability issue differently, and done something different than a bonus, but that's what they chose to do. The state employees issue is the area that I think I would have done it differently. But the teacher pay increase, it's worth pointing out, this is a significant raise after a couple of other years of significant raises. If my calculations are correct, we will have done about a 15% increase in average teacher pay since McCrory's inauguration. North Carolina, we should never have evaluated the adequacy of teacher pay on the basis of national rankings. But if you care about national rankings measured correctly, these raises if they're implemented next year, will put North Carolina somewhere in the high 20s rather than the last in the nation nonsense that people have been saying.
Chris, another one of the elements is they put $10 million into a disaster relief fund, but then they turned around and, as John, I think, alluded to earlier, put $475 million into the rainy day reserves to bring them up to about 7.5% of the total budget. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think we need a savings account that is significant. I guess what I'm fascinated by is that we've been told we want 8% as our goal because that's what we require local governments to do. But the Senate also passed a constitutional amendment that would require us to have 12.5% savings account. So there's a lot of conflicting information on Jones Street about how much we want to save. I think a lot of people are saying that part of that is that they just don't want to fund the essential, make the investments they need in state government, and they're relying on these moving targets for savings to not do it.
Howard, talk about the tuition so far as the University of North Carolina system was concerned. If you're a freshman entering a UNC school, your tuition is going to be frozen for 4 years, and in 3 of the universities, UNC Pembroke, Western Carolina, and Elizabeth City State, they've limited the tuition to $500 a semester. They were only going to originally have 2, but ECSU lobbied to get put into that group. What's your feeling about that?
Well, I certainly think that is a positive step. These schools, those 3 schools that you mentioned, are schools that have been in trouble for a long time in terms of attracting students. And I think that could be a good boost for them, and especially if the legislature is going to come in and shore them up. Now, if they leave them hanging out there, it could be a problem. I have no problems with freezing tuition for a student who comes in that they can count on for a period of years. But the problem with it, as I see it, that could be a trap, is that the universities then will start raising fees. And so they're going to get caught one way or another, and we have to be very careful about that.
All right, we're going to have more budget discussion after these messages. Stay with us.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Baseball players from other countries are considered guest workers here. Baseball, the previous administration and Congress cut a deal in 2006 allowing foreign players to travel freely across the country. Not so for agriculture guest workers. They're vilified for doing work Americans won't, and they face a mountain of red tape just to get here. Shouldn't American agriculture get the same consideration as baseball? Farm Bureau and Agriculture, we keep North Carolina growing.
North Carolina is a great state with great assets.
Among them are 180,000 state employees.
Our legislators are considering important decisions regarding working conditions,
health insurance,
retirement benefits,
and pay for state employees.
Syndicated is the one voice at the table when those decisions are being considered.
Syndicated is revitalized and refocused.
A stronger Syndicated ensures a more effective voice.
Learn more at www.syndic.org.
We now return to NC Spin.
We continue our discussion about the budget that was just passed in North Carolina. Joe, one of the things that was talked about quite a bit, the conflicts between the House and the Senate, were tax cuts for low-wage earners. The resolution they ended up with would raise the exemptions for married couples filing jointly from $15,500 a year to $17,500 a year for 2017. How much is that actually going to help these families, especially since they're still going to have to pay expanded sales taxes?
Well, the Raleigh News and Observer came out with an editorial that said that this would only put just a few dollars in anybody's pockets and that it was silly. My approach is that when you're struggling, a few dollars in your pocket makes a lot of difference. And clearly, again, the ship of state in North Carolina is headed toward more taxes on consumption and a cap on income.
John, while the legislature didn't repeal certificate of need, which is a topic we've talked about a lot on this show, it said that the proceeds from the sale of the Dorothea Dix campus in Raleigh was going to be used for mental health. And one of the things that they were going to do was to try to use that money to help provide mental health beds in rural hospitals.
Right.
We also talked, I think Becky Gray talked several weeks ago about the fact that they were going to run right into certificate of need problems. They waived those. Was that a good move?
That's correct. The budget, as you say, allocated those funds to providing the psychiatric beds and substance abuse, I think, beds in some of the rural hospitals where there is capacity, and to bypass the need for a certificate of need.
All right, Chris,
there really shouldn't be certificate of need regulations. This is the 21st century, but at least this is a good first step.
The devil is always in the details, and in budget details, there's special provisions. We've got about a minute in this segment. Anything you uncovered in special provisions?
Yeah, well, there's two of them. They're not that secret. I'll give you two quick ones. One is they deregulated these horrible virtual charter schools again. They changed the percentages. They lowered the percentage of teachers who have to live in North Carolina. They changed the way dropout rates are calculated to give the schools a break. And the second one, they put an environmental policy in there. They further delayed the anti-pollution rules to protect Jordan Lake and Falls Lake. The Senate was going to put freshwater mussels in the lake after solar bees failed. But this budget again delayed these rules that rivers are still going to be polluted. The lakes.
All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the first gubernatorial debate.
NC Spin will return after these messages.
Closed, a sign you're seeing too often, especially on abandoned grocery stores and markets. When these stores close, we all lose. We lose the healthy North Carolina grown fresh produce, and our farmers lose local outlets to sell what they grow. The Healthy Corner Store Initiative can change this by providing resources to local small store owners so they can stock and sell fresh fruits and vegetables. Find out how you can get involved at ncallianceforhealth.org.
You only get one pair of eyes. Keeping them healthy is critical to your quality of life. Members of the NC Optometric Society know this. These highly skilled doctors have the latest technology and the medical training to care for your eyes and the eyes of those you love. Make sure you visit your optometrist for an eye exam on a regular basis. For more information on keeping your eyes healthy or to find the right optometrist for you, visit nceyes.org. Remember, healthy eyes, healthier lives.
There's more good news in our North Carolina forecast as our children's education improves. Under Governor McCrory's leadership, North Carolina teachers enjoyed the largest teacher pay raise in the country. And most important, since Pat McCrory has been governor, teachers' pay has increased 10%, more than $2,100 a year. Our education barometer continues to go up with Pat McCrory as governor. That means clear nights and sunny days, higher teacher pay raises, improved education. That's your forecast.
You sleep on concrete till your body get immune to concrete.
My mom got my brother and I up and said, come on, we're leaving.
I became homeless in the beginning of this year.
When I was about 4 or 5 years old, our house caught fire.
I used to see my brother. If he see me, he'd turn and go the other direction.
We did the only thing that we could think of, and we went to a Salvation Army shelter.
You know, we don't have this, like, what's your background look like? We just say, what do you need?
I remember the man from the Salvation Army coming down with a box of clothes.
The Salvation Army officer bought my brother and I an ice cream cone.
Last week, my brother walked up to me, and he just started a conversation.
Today I've given my life to the Salvation Army because I remember what somebody did for me, my brother, and my mom over 30 years ago.
The Salvation Army for me means hope.
Compassion.
Family.
Support.
We now return to NC Spin.
With the recent polls showing the gubernatorial race a virtual toss-up, the North Carolina Bar Association hosted Pat McCrory and Roy Cooper in an hour-long debate. We want our panel to discuss how each performed and particular points they made. I'm going to begin by asking each of you, based on content and delivery, who won the first gubernatorial debate? Chris?
Actually, I thought Governor McCrory started out stronger, seemed more at ease. Maybe it's because he was in Charlotte, but I thought I thought the governor didn't end very well, and for that reason, I would give Attorney General Roy Cooper a slight advantage.
I think it's a draw.
All right.
I thought it was a draw. I think both men presented their issues very well.
John?
I thought Pat McCrory won the debate, maybe not by a large margin. I just think he's more comfortable in the format and more effective. Cooper is a capable and experienced politician. He got his 2 points in several times, but McCrory was just more comfortable and had a more compelling story to tell.
Joe, most folks are saying that ultimately the winner in this gubernatorial election is going to depend on who's at the top of the ticket in the presidential slate. You agree or disagree with that?
I disagree. I think at the top of the ticket for Ds and Rs, it's going to be a hold your nose and vote. For the independents, it's going to come down to advertising in the last minute. For the governor's race, because I think it's a hold your nose at the top, I think the governor's race is going to come down between two people who, male, white men, who pretty much articulate their positions, but I think it's going to come down to the fist versus the female bump.
All right. Howard, let's talk specifics. Governor McCrory started off talking about what a mess the state was in when he took over in office. We had the 5th highest unemployment rate, the highest income taxes in the Southeast. He kept repeating this Carolina comeback mantra and took credit for creating 280,000 new jobs. Cooper went on the attack early, saying McCrory has put into place an aggressive social agenda. He's increased taxes in 65 different ways from birth to death, and further that he claimed our tax policy is going in the wrong direction, paying more or benefiting more the benefit of wealthy and corporations. Which message do you think is going to resonate with voters?
Well, I think that both will find some interest among different people. Personally, I think the governor made a lot of claims about things that he probably shouldn't be taking credit for. And I know the state was having some difficulty when he came into office because we'd hit on some hard times. But I don't see the picture as bleak as he painted it. I don't know that the Cooper argument is going to necessarily attract a lot of people, but I certainly think it's an attractive one to make.
John, McCrory talked about teacher pay going from 17th to 48th before he came into office, and now the last year, the biggest teacher pay increase in history. He said support for education was in our DNA in North Carolina. Cooper said McCrory's actions didn't match his words. When asked, he would say to someone who was considering going into the teaching profession, Cooper said, "Hold on, I'm coming," reminding us of the old Sam and Dave song. Compare and contrast the two positions on education.
Well, I thought McCrory told his story well. This is an area where Cooper is a more credible spokesman. Typically, Democrats have a little bit of an edge making education claims. I thought his tax claims were implausible. Cooper's the one that's voted for lots and lots of tax increases in his career, not McCrory. So I think on education, McCrory has a story, Cooper has a story. I'd call that more of a wash. McCrory's statements are correct. Obviously, Cooper is right. You could always have spent more. Even if you spend a lot, you could always spend more, and that's what he's trying to offer voters, is spend more.
All right, Chris, as might be expected, the two were asked about HB 2. McCrory said this is a national issue now. He didn't think government should tell the private sector about their bathroom policies, adding that the courts needed to decide this issue. Cooper said the governor was blaming the left-wing bureaucrats, the Charlotte City Council, President Obama, and the federal government for a bad bill that had cost our state hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. He said McCrory was worried about where you go to the bathroom. He's worried about where you go from here. Who scored the points on this one?
Well, I think Cooper scored the points, but I think he missed an opportunity as well. I mean, remember, HB 2 is not just about bathrooms. It's about a non-discrimination standard. We have a much tougher one that prevents LGBT people from being protected. We removed the right to sue in state court. We prohibited local governments from protecting their citizens from discrimination. I think all those things, I would think, would play well with the voters who, I don't think North Carolinians want to discriminate. I do think some of them are confused about the bathroom policy, although, given all those things, I think Cooper obviously had prepared well for this and had a soundbite and delivered it.
All right, Joe, in their closing statement, McCrory said leaders had to make tough decisions and that we needed to direct people to skills professions where jobs are needed. He highlighted the work of our community colleges and their training and retraining the workforce. Spent a lot of time talking about veterans and his creation of a new cabinet position of veteran affairs. Cooper said that he was going to prioritize education, not just talk about it. He wanted to fight for the middle class and has a vision that's not beholden to a social agenda. Closing by saying, we need new leadership to move us forward. Who did the best job summarizing their positions?
Again, I think it was a wash. I think the governor said, this is what I've said, this is what I've been doing, this is what I intend to do in the future. It's an issue of somebody who says, I've been there, done that, and somebody who said, this is what I promised to do. Before we leave this segment, one thing. When I started tracking where we were in teacher pay, we never got to the middle of the country, and I've never heard anybody support 17 in the country.
All right, as we said at the beginning of this segment, the polls show this is a virtual tie. Number one, did this debate move the needle one way or the other, you think? And do you think subsequent debates between the two are going to make any difference? Very short time, John.
I think that the more debates there are, the more McCrory will get a little bit of a benefit from it, which is probably why Cooper won't agree to a lot more debates.
Howard.
I think debates are good. I'm strongly supportive of them. I think Roy will get better, and as he gets more comfortable with the issues.
My question is, are they going to be able to move the needle one way or the other?
I think the debate will move the needle.
All right, Joe?
I don't think so. I think what's going to move the needle is something external, and I don't know what that is yet.
All right.
I think it's unlikely they'll move the needle because unless somebody makes a major mistake or there's some external event that people react to. And it is a little unusual for the incumbent to be wanting to debate more. But I think what this does is generate some media coverage and maybe change the narrative a little bit. But unless somebody makes a big mistake, I don't think it's going to be a game changer.
All right. Well, after these messages, we're going to ask the panel to tell us something we don't know.
NC Spin is brought to you in part by the North Carolina Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau and Agriculture. We keep North Carolina growing.
The cost of everything has gone up dramatically over the last 75 years. With one exception, keeping electricity affordable. That's the power of your co-op membership. Learn more at togetherwesave.com.
North Carolina's Touchstone Energy Cooperatives, looking out for you.
It's a fact, patients who receive care in the medical home from a trusted family physician reduce healthcare costs through prevention, early detection, and affordable management of high-cost chronic diseases.
Every dollar invested in healthcare matters. Let's invest them wisely, building on North Carolina's medical home model. Better health begins with a medical home, a trusted family physician, the best return on our healthcare investment. Learn about the importance of medical homes at ournchealthcare.com.
Closed, a sign you're seeing too often, especially on abandoned grocery stores and markets. When these stores close, we all lose. We lose the healthy North Carolina grown fresh produce, and our farmers lose local outlets to sell what they grow. The Healthy Corner Store Initiative can change this by providing resources to local small store owners so they can stock and sell fresh fruits and vegetables. Find out how you can get involved at ncallianceforhealth.org.
We now return to NC Spin.
One of the best parts of our show is when we ask the panel to tell us something we don't know. I don't know what they're going to tell us. We don't know, but I'm going to ask John Hood to start.
Well, Tom, what a difference a month makes. If you look at the polling average in the presidential race in North Carolina in May, Donald Trump was slightly ahead, a couple of points ahead on average versus Hillary Clinton. In June, that flips around in the polling average to a 3-point advantage for Hillary Clinton. What happened? Did Donald Trump drop? No. Hillary Clinton started to bring home some of the Bernie Sanders voters in North Carolina, and I suspect that will continue into July.
All right. Howard, tell us something we don't know.
I spent the weekend attending a meeting of the Southern Regional Education Board in Little Rock, Arkansas, and got really impacted by the data that Southern schools finally are starting to move up and are now performing very close to the national average. I think that's something to be very proud of because we started so far behind.
All right. Joe, tell us something we don't know.
State employee, retirees, any public sector retiree ought to pay attention to the issue of COLA. COLA in this century has not addressed a 2.2% increase in prices. And so if you don't get a constant COLA, then every year that goes by, you're going to lose money. And so what that means for state retirees in North Carolina is that the long-term value of their retirement diminishes every year without a COLA.
All right, Chris, tell us something we don't know.
Well, it's interesting, but when Donald Trump came to Greensboro recently, neither Pat McCrory nor Richard Burr were there. When Hillary Clinton came to Raleigh, neither Deborah Ross or Roy Cooper were there. Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are coming to Charlotte next week, and Deborah Ross and Roy Cooper are going to be there. And I think you're going to see them appear more with the Democratic candidates, and I don't think you're going to see a lot of Pat McCrory and Donald Trump on the stage together.
Interesting. All right. Well, obviously the 2016 elections are going to be playing out, and we're going to be talking about them all through this period between now and November 8. Well, you've heard our spin on the issues of the day. To stay informed all during the week, give your feedback, and read my weekly column, visit our website, ncspin.com, or catch NC Spin on Facebook, and join us next week for more balanced debate for the Old North State. Until then, have a safe and happy July 4th, stay informed, and watch out for the spin.
Join us next week and get the spin on issues facing our state.